Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Expert to Authority show. My name is Simone Vincenzi, as this is the show for businesses who want to grow, for business owners who want to grow their businesses while making an impact in the world. And today we are really going to talk about how can you be a long haul leader. We're going to talk about the concept of long haul leadership. And my guest today is the one and only Chris Ducker. He's a veteran entrepreneur, best-selling author, and a global authority on personal brand building and sustainable business growth. He's the founder of Youpreneur, which is the world-leading personal brand business community, and he has helped thousands of coaches, consultants, creators build future-proof businesses around their expertise without burning out. He's launching his third book, The Long Haul Leader, and focuses on how modern entrepreneurs can lead with endurance, clarity, and purpose, building businesses that last without sacrificing their health or values. Please welcome to the show, Chris Ducker. Chris, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here.
All right, let's start straight away with what inspired you to write this book. And before I actually even start, everyone, you can find the link of the book in the show notes. So just scroll down, you'll click it. So while we are having this interview, you can already check it out. So Chris, what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, man, that's a rabbit hole that you're inviting me to go down right here. I mean, ultimately, it was my own burnout that inspired me to write the book. And, I'll make a very long story short. 2021, I burnt out pretty badly. I didn't see it coming. We were having a phenomenal year business-wise. We were serving hundreds and hundreds of clients in a number of different programs that we were running. Making an absolute ton of money in the process and doing great work. I was loving the work I was doing, but honestly, I was doing too much, plain simple. And around sort of September, I hit a wall and ended up taking myself to the doctor, having a load of blood work done and cortisol testing and this, that, and the other, and you name it. That I was like I was a lab rat for a good couple of weeks, putting needles in me and this, that, and the other, because I was just absolutely exhausted all the time. I was sort of no good to anybody from around 11 o'clock in the morning. I had no energy left at that point in the day or anything like that. It was really, really tough after building businesses for, at that point, 18, 19 years at the time. It was tough for me to not have energy, to not have that kind of get up and go that I usually have. And as a result of all those tests, I was diagnosed with high anxiety, depression, and also phase 3 adrenal failure, which is basically about as clinical as a burnout diagnosis as you can get. And so I kind of went about the way of like a lot of entrepreneurs do. When you are presented with a problem, you go into kind of action superhero mode and you say, I'm going to find a solution. And, I went down all these different avenues to discover nutrition and biohacking and sleep and a host of other stuff to try and get myself well again. And it worked. It all worked. It was brilliant. But it also led me to believe that, hang on, I can't be the only person in my position having these kind of things to deal with. And I started talking with a lot of peers, a lot of colleagues, friends, et cetera, in the industry. And I found out very quickly that I was not alone. And particularly men were being very kind of secretive about the whole things because we're stupid. Our male pride gets in the way of everything. And so, I started having a lot of very, very tough conversations with a lot of very, very successful people. And that's what led me to ultimately put together the framework that the long haul leader is built on.
Now, we're going to talk about the framework in a moment. I'm curious, for how many years have you been in business at that point?
At that point, like I said, probably around about, I'm going to say about probably 17, 18 years, I had been running and building my own businesses. We have built 4 companies in that period of time. One of them did not work out, was a complete failure. I don't talk about that one very much, funnily enough. But the other 3 were all very, very successful, multi-7-figure on an annual basis type of enterprises, ranging from very, very large call center facility to full-on online education suites and things like
I
that.
was curious. I asked that question because I'm wondering, do you think, because you're talking about 2021 and that was the post-COVID period,
Yeah.
do you think that also that had an influence in what you went through? Like it had
Absolutely.
made
I
an
think
impact?
there's no doubt in my mind that it had an influence in it. I mean, 2021, middle of 2021, we were still bang smack in the middle of the pandemic, really. You know, lockdowns were on and off and on and off and all the rest of it. And yeah, I'm 100% sure that it had something to do with it. I mean, I'm a busy traveler. I travel, I speak a lot on business as well. So I couldn't travel. I couldn't speak on stage. I couldn't get the round of applause and the laughter that an extrovert like me wants and needs to hear on a regular basis to get those dopamine hits that we crave for. And you know, I couldn't see a lot of my friends. You know, a lot of my very, very close friends are in the United States, for example, and so I couldn't go and see them, and they couldn't come and see me. And so, you know, it was quite a lonely time, even though I've got a loving family and I love my family. You know, you kind of, we all got cabin fever a little bit. And I think that looking back on it now from a retrospective perspective, no doubt in my mind that COVID played a very big part in that burnout happening. And I think the other thing was, because you were working at home all the time. I mean, I've worked at home, you know, exclusively for the last 12, 13 years, but because we were at home all the time and we weren't going out to meetings or traveling to conferences or whatever it was, that made it even worse. I think that made it even worse. So yes, it definitely played a part.
It feels like we had like parallel situation. And when you said you told to your peers and we went through similar experience,
Yeah.
but exactly at that time, that's where I had my complete breakdown,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
got me like you to really rethink about everything that I had created in my business. I was running my life because we were running at that point in just in London about 200 small events every single year. So we're
Wow.
running events and we were finding really like events for 50 to 100 people and we are running them like clockwork. And that is, we did 1,000 events in 5 years. And moving from there to here I am stuck at home while
Very
trying
different.
to save a business which was based on delivering
In
things in
person, right?
person
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and dealing with not having client counseling and so on. Like I worked like a dog for the first 2020, 2019, 2020, and 2021. It was like, boom, it hit
Yeah.
me.
Hit you. Yeah.
So from what you found in this discovery, what were some of the things, some of the most important principles that end up being part of then the framework that you have created in the long haul leader?
Yeah, so we call it the long haul leader life OS, or the life operating system. And the reason why I gave it that title is because we think about it logically from the day-to-day life that we live nowadays. Our computers have got operating systems, our phones have got operating systems. Why don't we have an OS for ourselves? Why not? We're important. We are the engine, we're the spark, we're the change makers, we're the big deals, right? Like we're the ones that are running the businesses, we're fueling the businesses, we're pushing it and building that momentum. And so if we're not at, you know, optimum performance, if we're not performing, you know, to our absolute best, then something's going to break sooner or later, or at the absolute bare minimum, ultimately things are not going to grow at the speed and at the height that they probably could do, right? And so that's when I started to look at, like I said, you know, you know, and I'm a 52-year-old guy now. So I was in my late 40s when this happened. I thought I was in very good shape, quite frankly, from a physical perspective. Mentally, you know, clearly I was depressed. I was going through a lot of anxiety as well, which if you'd have asked me 2018 whether both of those things would come into my world, I would have called you crazy. I would have been like, no, absolutely not. But here I was battling it, right? Like a lot of us were, right? A lot of us were. And so I think that, you know, there was probably three things that really stood out to me. But the framework itself has four main principles. But there were three things that really stood out to me initially. And so the first one was the personal mastery side of things. So, what do we do to make ourselves the best version that we can possibly be? And that comes down to, you know, health and mental wellness, obviously. It comes down to your diet. It comes down to your exercise. It comes down to taking time out to be able to learn new skills. A good leader must learn in order to lead, right? And so that was kind of the first thing. The second thing was relationships. and love. And this is the one thing that I really lent into quite a lot through COVID, because I'm a very, very big believer that relationships should be treasured. They shouldn't be used. Relationships are probably the single biggest commodity in success for business, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. And so I really lent into that. And I spoke to my friends regularly. I would have Zoom tea time or Zoom cocktails and all these other things that we were doing through the period. So that was the second thing. The third thing was the work itself. You know, was I disjointed from the work that I was doing, or was I working in my zone of genius? Was I serving the right type of clients, or was I serving the wrong type of clients? And how would that affect my mental health, as well as obviously how we would grow as a business as well? So those first three things, that was kind of the framework, to be honest with you, man. And then I started interviewing people for case studies for the book. And one thing kept coming up. And by the way, this is going to come out of left field for you, because it came out of left field for me as well. One thing kept coming up over and over and over again, and that was hobbies. Hobbies and pastimes. I didn't see this coming at all. But I noticed through talking to people, the more people who I spoke with who were really successful people all had really important hobbies to them. Like they would make time on their schedule for their hobbies. Super important. And that would help with them with obviously, you know, recalibrating and recharging, but also getting a lot more healthier overall, and obviously more productive at work. In fact, actually,
Doesn't this go against like the hustle culture that there is though?
this
Because
is it. Yeah.
you know, when you're listening to like aka the gurus, or you're looking at anything about building a business, is about being obsessed.
Yes.
It's about having that single-minded focus. It's about
Yes.
not doing anything, eat, sleep, work, repeat. So why is that then?
Super important. Such a good question. So we discovered actually that, and let's talk about hustle culture very quickly. I believe it's pretty much over now. I think we're coming to the end of it. I believe that. And I've looked at the statistics and I can see how people are waking up to this problem. And it was almost an epidemic. And I don't use that word lightly at all. The fact is that, you know, we got to the point where people were kind of utilizing burnout as a bit of a badge of honor, right? Like I'm hustling to grow my business. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It is a warning sign. It is a great big flashing light that if you ignore, you will be done with your business. It will go out of business, plain and simple. So our job here is to not glorify exhaustion, but also to understand that true leadership, like true leadership deep down, is definitely 100% sustainable. People who lead for the long haul are the ones that are the most successful people, plain and simple. Look at people like Richard Branson, for example. He's gone through his hustle seasons. Of course he has, but hustle is not his lifestyle. It's just part of what he does. When he needs to put his foot down on the gas, he puts his foot down on the gas, but he doesn't leave it there. He takes it off. He resets, he recalibrates, he vacations, and so on and so on and so on. What we discovered, though, there was one particular thing in regards to hobbies that I wanted to share with you. And this was just unbelievable when we found this statistic, which was in a Forbes survey done a few years ago, that executives and leaders who partook in hobbies for a minimum of 2 hours each week, so just 2 hours a week, were on average between 25 to 30% more productive in their work. So if you want to get more done, if you want to be more productive, get a hobby. That's the simple point, right? It's a simple point. So yeah, I believe hustle culture is coming to an end, and I'm hoping this book actually helps that come about a little sooner than maybe if the world didn't have it in it.
Mm. There is a theory that I have on this as well. We're
I'd
very
love to know
aligned,
it.
in the way of thinking, because I think that hustle culture also is very American. If we look at it, and I don't know, I'm Italian originally. The ain't hustle culture in Italy, Chris. Trust me.
No, I know there isn't.
All right, you go. Actually, you try to do you get away with the most by doing the least.
Yes. Yeah.
That's also why personally I cannot live in Italy, because I cannot stand that. I
Right.
found actually my happy place in London, because I'm a go-getter, someone who wants to get things done, and
Sure.
in Italy you have too much of the other side. But I think that if we look at the American way of building things, which is really the entire thing is about what you can build, what you can create, despite everything that you can go through. It's like, okay, your family can like, you have problems in your marriage, you have problems with your family, you have problems with your health, but no, you can
Yeah.
still be that
Yeah.
high perform, which I don't even know
Yeah.
if it's high performance at this point. But I think that really with social media, that went across like every other country, or in particular we're talking about the UK now. Do you think that there is a resonance, or am I missing the point here, or that was just a theory that I had?
No, I think you're pretty spot on. But you know, I also feel like, you know, the American culture is slowly but surely coming around to understand this as well. I mean, all you need to do is look at all of the. I mean, you know, just turn on YouTube for half an hour and flip through, you know, a lot of, and don't watch, you know, and I mean no disrespect by using these people as an example, but don't look at Alex Hormozy. All right, don't look at him, or even Gary Vaynerchuk, who is, you know, is a buddy. And you know, we've had a number of discussions over the years about his term hustle and things like that, and hustle mode switch on, and all these t-shirts that he's done and everything.
Grant Cardone is like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And look, you know, again, I want to clarify, hustle is not a bad thing in and amongst itself. It's hard work is really what it is. And hustle is not a bad thing. We will go through periods of hustle. We'll go through those sprints, but they can't last. It's not sustainable. Hustle is a season. It's not a lifestyle. And so I think it's really important to understand that if that success that you're having is costing you your health or your family or your joy, then that isn't success. That's sacrifice. And I don't know about you, I'm acutely aware of the fact that I am on this planet for only a certain period of time, and I'm not going to be an unhappy, you know, grumpy person. I want to be full of joy and love and success. And that means that I look after myself. I spend time with my family and my friends. I enjoy hobbies. I go on vacations regularly with my family and my wife. Even my wife and I have 3 breaks a year, just the two of us, right? So we, you know, these things are they're very much done on a purposeful way. They're not reactive at all. It's not like it's Thursday and we say, hey, let's go on, you know, vacation for a few days with each other on Saturday. No, they're on the calendar going into each year. Actually, end of October, beginning of November, I meet with my entire team and I walk into that meeting. They know full well that our sabbatical in August, we take the entire month off in August, is going to be on there. There's going to be 3 individual trips. We call it an early year reset, a mid-year reset, and a late year reset. They're going to be on the schedule as well, plus a whole other bits and pieces. Then that means that when we go in with that calendar almost preloaded to a certain degree with all these personal things, then the business can have the rest of the time. And that's the way we've done it for years. So I just think it's really important to understand that it's, you know, it's not about sacrificing these things. Like, it's about taking, you know, making the right priorities and then taking the right actions to make sure that you protect those, you know?
Why do you think though people make those sacrifices? Because if you look at logically, right? And I've been there. I think after I had my
Oh, I have as
change of
well. Don't get
heart,
me wrong.
right?
Yeah.
After I made my change of heart after COVID and after I went to my lowest point, um, why do you think that people though wear that badge of honor, or and is also so difficult to let go? Because I remember myself, a lot of people that I know, you know, I had problems with my wife because I was working too much. Like, I wasn't seeing her enough. I knew that that was the case, but I still kept working because in my mind, I thought I gotta make these things
Yeah.
bigger so that I can provide. Like, there was all these things that thanks God to couples therapy that really changed a lot of my perspectives. But you see people, their health is falling apart and they know it, but at the same time they cannot stop it.
Yeah.
What do you think is the reason why?
I think, and this is just obviously one man's opinion here, right? But I think that entrepreneurs are wired very, very differently to the general population. I believe that. Um,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I I think, almost all entrepreneurs that I know are very type A individuals. They're micromanagers, or they are until they get to a certain point where they're just, well, I'm not going to continue to grow anymore if I don't start delegating. And so they become less of a micromanager. But once a micromanager, always a micromanager. It's very easy to slip back into that stuff. So you need to have people that hold you accountable to a lot of your decisions as well. That's a big part of success, I feel. But I think ultimately, people have got to the point now where it's almost like they feel guilty about the time that they spend away from building their businesses. And that shouldn't be the case at all, because you matter just as much, if not more, than the business, right? Like, we know that for sure. So here's what I do know after 22, almost 23 years of growing businesses. This is what I know to be 100% true. Your business is going to be just fine. It'll wait. Okay. You want to take the afternoon off? Take the afternoon off. You want to do the sabbatical in the summer? Do the sabbatical in the summer. As long as you've got the right systems and the right staff and team and processes in place, the business will wait. It won't implode if you're not around for a while. Your inbox is going to wait. Sure, it might be a little hefty when you get back, but you can manage it. Your body, however, your mind, your relationships, they won't wait. As you very clearly stated, they're not going to wait. And if you continue to push and push and push, and it's business, 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 business 24/7, those other things will break. It is inevitable, plain simple.
It was interesting. I was reflecting on my journey when, even when I was at the peak. I always said that, going back to the importance of hobbies, I never put that in those words, but I always said that basketball keeps me sane.
Are you a basketball fan? Me too.
I'm a basketball player. I used to play
Okay.
in the
Yeah, me
fourth
too,
division.
man. All right,
Oh,
cool. I like
we
that.
gotta play.
Yeah.
So I used to play in the fourth
Well, you're a
division.
lot younger than me. Don't expect me to go one-on-one against you. We'll just have a game of horse or
Well,
something
we'll
instead.
do a horse game, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
But but I started playing, like in the professional league when I was 28, so quite late to
Awesome.
start. And I
Okay.
played in
Yeah.
the fourth and third division in the UK National League. Very short. I'm a classic bench warmer, but I was just happy to be at that level and to be
Sure.
playing professionally there. And I remember that that was the only thing that after I built my event business was getting me, like, I would leave my seminars that I was running to have someone else deliver some of my parts so that I could attend the game or I could play, even if staying in the bench.
Right.
And then after that, I still play naturally, normally like 3, 4 times a week, about 2 hours. I love, and the basketball keeps me sane. And so when you said about the importance of hobbies, then it reminded me about I cannot function if I don't have that outlet, because it's
There you go.
somewhere where I can be fully present.
Yeah.
I can be I can be fully myself. I can let it out completely. And whatever is for anyone listening, whatever your hobby is, whatever is that thing that makes you kind of forget
Yeah.
about everything else,
Yeah.
about your roles or responsibilities and so on.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
have it.
Hobbies, I think, get pushed to one side
Yeah.
way too often with entrepreneurs. I have three hobbies that I engage in. One of them takes over a little bit more than the other two, but I practice bonsai. I have about 40 bonsai trees on my
Okay.
property. I'm also a watercolor artist as well.
Yeah.
But also the one hobby that I love more than anything else is wildlife photography. And
Yeah.
so, at least twice, sometimes 3 times a week, I'll be out in forests or nature reserves or whatever the case may be with my cameras and, taking photos of birds and you name it. Right. So that for me is my happy place. I have never, ever felt in a worse off position than I did when I came back from a walk in the forest. You
Yeah.
always feel better. I
I'm with
always
you.
feel better.
I'm with you.
Much like you go to a scrimmage, you go play for a couple hours, you always feel better after scrimmaging for a
I
couple
get
hours,
that
right?
email, that nasty email that I was going to send is not going to be sent.
Right.
It's gonna have a different tone. Let's
Right.
me put it this way. But there was something that you said is like, okay, you can take your business is still gonna be there. It's true in certain situations though, because if you have a small business and you are the business,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's a different kind of pressure. Now I know, like, I have my assistant, I have my team. The life that I have right now with the business that I have is very different from the life that I had before, and I'm not sure if I was going to be able to build it without working so hard in such a short space of time.
Sure.
And I think that's where the chicken and an egg kind of dilemma is. It's like, okay, do I want to grow faster so that I can have a bit more time later, but at what cost? Or at the moment, like if I go on holiday, I remember I went on a honeymoon for 3 weeks. I was having jitters during my honeymoon about not responding to emails because
Right.
it was me, right? What would you say to people that are in that situation?
Yeah, this is always going to be one of those discussions that I think runs on a very, very personal situation. It's very different for everybody when this discussion comes up. Like, how do you juggle these two things? And I completely understand that I'm probably in a position that other people are not in, and vice versa as well. I mean, I want to clarify, like, I don't have, a super luxurious lifestyle. I live very comfortably. I still work for a living. I've got, a good savings, and, we've done well from a business standpoint, selling companies and things like that. I appreciate I'm not in the same boat as a lot of people out there. But all I can talk about is my experience. I can talk about how I feel about certain things and the people that I've mentored or coached over the year as well. And I'll give you one perfect example. Actually, I was coaching one particular lady who I'm still coaching. She's been with me now for about 5 or 6 years as a client. And about 2 years or so ago, she was probably when she first joined me, she was stuck at around about £200,000 a year in revenue. And we got it up to about 600,000 in a few years of working with each other. And a couple of years ago, she turned around and she said, you know what? I think I've kind of got to the point now where I don't need to make more money, but I do need and I want to work a lot less. So that's what I want us to work on, Chris. And I said, okay, so this is where you're currently at. What's the number? What's the number for you? And she said, 500,000. I want my revenue to be 500,000 every year. That's where I want it to be at. Great. So, and understand that money number is for her. It's not for you or me or anyone else, right? It's a personal thing. So then what we did is, right, okay, so you're currently doing this. You want to be doing that. Let's have a look at what is bringing that money in, how you're bringing that money in, which is probably a more important question, and what that looks like from a workload for you as well. And we ended up hiring a few people and firing a few people and killing a few products and then creating another offer. And long story short, she's now working, I believe she works about 30 hours a week. She's averaging around 500,000 a year in revenue, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but she is a very, very, very happy, healthy entrepreneur. And I think that's the big key there. It's about finding the balance for you, but it's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be different for everybody. A good friend of mine is actually a very, very well-known wildlife photographer. And you would be surprised. They don't make that much money, even though their photos are on the BBC and Nat Geo and all these places, right? But they don't make a lot of money. And his number on a monthly basis is £6,000. That's all he needs to bring in to live a comfortable lifestyle the way that he lives. So two completely polar opposites there in terms of ambition and needs and aspirations and whatnot. But it's always a very personal answer to that question.
Yeah, and I have another question, which is I love to wrap up also with this question, which is a bit devil's advocate, still going around. People start businesses in different ways, in different
Hmm.
ways. I remember I started my business, I had no money. Like my background was a waiter in restaurants, so I had 100 quid. I started with that. It took me 4 years before I could be able to make any money from my business and pay myself in that way.
Sure.
And if I don't sell, I don't pay my rent. And so when you are in situations of survivals, and yeah, I was just myself. Think about people that have a family. Now I had the responsibility of if I don't sell, my family doesn't have a roof over their head. That's even a higher level of responsibility. How would you suggest? And you said, of course, that sprinting is a season. So there is a season for it. It's not for the long haul, but it's about a season. But how would you apply your principles if someone is in that situation where, it's do or die kind of situation, and or that's at least how it feels, do or
Yeah.
die as a situation. How would you apply those principles in those scenarios?
There's a couple of things to understand here. First up, you know, sit and ask yourself, what's more important to you? Is it how much money you make or how you make the money? That's important to understand, right? Because my wildlife photographer buddy, Andy, he probably could make, he's an incredible graphic artist as well, right? So he could probably make a lot more money being a full-time graphic communicator or graphic designer than he does taking photos of squirrels, for example, right? But he wants to take the photos of the squirrels. The other thing is that, it's not about being busy all the time. Anybody can fill up a calendar. It's about creating those meaningful moments that lend themselves to those successful results as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a kind of long-winded way is it's about priorities at the end of the day. And sure, if you've got a family, you've got to provide for them, man. Like, I'm a father of 4 children. I have to provide for my kids just like anybody else does. So sometimes you've simply got to do what you've got to do for as long as you need to do it for. But if that starts getting to the point where it becomes the norm, then you need to start looking at what it is you're doing and how you're making the money, more so over how much. Because one thing I do know for sure is I think a lot of people complicate revenue generation. We've got to the point now where, you see all these complicated marketing funnels and, each ecosystem's got 8 different offers in it and all this kind of stuff. It's not needed. Yeah. Simplicity is the way to go with a lot of this stuff. And I've been saying it for years. You simplify to amplify. So come up with one really good offer. Talk about that one really good offer all the time. One particular avatar can buy that offer. One particular way to be able to sell and provide or deliver that offer. Don't try and, do all these things. And AI right now is like, let's not go down this rabbit hole. But I mean, everybody is trying to do this and that and everything because they think they can knock stuff out quickly with AI. It's not the case at all. So I think ultimately it comes down to priorities. It comes down to understanding that you can't do everything. You can't be everywhere and you're never going to be able to please everyone. So, look at your own priorities. But yeah, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I love the answer because often I found that the busier we are, the more stupid decision I make. Like, I don't know, if I'm
100%.
talking about myself, like
100%.
the
Well,
moment where I
busy's a
hustle the
trap.
hardest, that's where the moments where I look back and I
Yeah.
say, you know what, I could have dealt with this situation in a much way better way, more efficient. It will cost me less time, less money. But just because I was through the motion, I didn't even lift my head to think about it.
So I love the way that you use the word motion there, because one of the big things one of my mentors said to me a few years ago, and I'll never forget this. He said, "Don't confuse motion with momentum." That's so true. Like I said, any idiot could fill up a calendar with a whole bunch of phone calls and things like that. But is it going to propel you forward? Is it going to move your business forward? Or are you just being busy for the sake of being busy? You're just in motion for the sake of it. So I love that you brought that up.
You're welcome. I've got one last question. Talking about the book, The Long Goal Leader. You said that you have interviewed a bunch of successful entrepreneurs. Is there one that really stood out that for you was one of the most inspiring stories or people that you have interviewed that you would like to mention here?
This is a tough one for me because not only did we do interviews for case studies specifically for the book, but we also called on a lot of other interviews that I've done through the years, because obviously I've been podcasting for 15 years now as well, right? So, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of very successful people. So it's a bit of a tough one. I will say and I didn't have the opportunity to speak with him personally like this, but because he was already on his sabbatical, but we were texting and I kind of did the interview via text. And it's a guy under the name of Alex Sharfin, who is a very, very successful entrepreneur / investor / coach. And a couple of years ago, he and his wife, after years and years and years and years of serving other entrepreneurs with their programs and things like that, he decided, I got enough. I don't need to work anymore. I'm okay. So I'm not going to work anymore. And he closed it all up to be able, and I mean, literally close the doors to everything, recurring revenue, the whole thing. I don't find the joy in the work that I'm doing anymore. I don't need to make any more money, not right now anyway. And so I'm closing it all down. I'm going to close up shop and I'm going to step away and I'm going to take some time for myself for once and not worry about serving clients and all the rest of it. He originally said he was going to be off for 6 to 8 months. It's been a couple of years. The dude hasn't resurfaced yet. So I find that incredibly inspiring to have that self-awareness to the point where you say, you know what, I feel okay right now to be able to just step away for a while. And I understand, again, not everybody's got that financial runway, right? But I think to from a leadership perspective, to be able to make that call, that's extremely impactful to take that on board. Very, very inspiring to take that on
In
board.
particular from an entrepreneur. As you
Yeah,
said, we're made from a different cloth
we
compared to a lot of
really
other
are.
people. And
Yeah.
so actually not giving into the addiction and the thrill that
Right.
you get also
Yes.
by running the
Yes.
business, then is an act of courage. Actually,
Could not
some
agree
people
more with you.
might not see it that way, but it
Right.
actually is. If you talk with an
Right.
entrepreneur, it actually is.
Yeah.
Chris, it has been a fantastic interview. Love this topic. So
Thank you.
everyone, make sure you get your book. It's called The Long Haul Leader. You can find it at thelonghaulleader.com. Whether you're watching this on YouTube is in the description. The link is in the description, or you can scroll down on your podcast. It is in the show notes. Make sure you check it out. Get your book because at the end of the day, I believe Chris believes both believe that our business can grow as much as we are able to operate it as well. So whether maybe your goal is not to retire and not to work anymore, maybe you want to still grow this business, but if you want your business to be sustainable and your life to be sustainable with joy and combine those without this kind of sacrifice, then the framework that Chris provided is the blueprint. So thelonghaulleader.com. Any final words to wrap this up, Chris?
No, man, I think you did a great job. I appreciate you having me on the show. It was great to be with you. And I just appreciate your conversation today. It was a great conversation.
I really enjoyed it as well. All right, Chris, thank you very much, everyone. Make sure you subscribe to the show if you have not subscribed yet, and also leave us a good review. 5 star, please. It's good for the guest, it's good for the show, and it's good for my ego. So make sure you press that 5 star review, and I'll see you next time. And always remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.